Hi, I'm Tom Laskowski. I'm the director of Midwest Native Skills, and it's Thursday. Every other Thursday, we go on Facebook Live and talk about some survival or some outdoor or some self-reliance topics. Just to give any new people a little background, we've been running a wilderness self-reliance school since 1997. It's a non-military survival school, and our philosophy is we just wanted to establish a place where people could come and learn the old ways of how to do things, whether it be outdoor wilderness survival or just some homesteading things. And by homesteading, I mean how to make wine, how to make dandelion wine, how to make soap, how to make cheese at home. A big one is wild edible medicinal plants. Just this past weekend we had our spring wild edible medicinal plant class, and we went around. First we showed people all the plants that are up in the springtime. We took a couple field trips, showed them what's blooming this time of year, and then we came back and we did a hands-on project. This time we made cough syrup out of coltsfoot. And then we made cough drops. Coltsfoot is a plant, looks kind of very similar to a dandelion on the untrained eye. And we made cough drops. And so it was a fun project. And we're going to have a class again on July 12th for those anywhere in the Ohio, Pennsylvania, Indiana region if you want to take a trip up. It's on a Saturday, so it'll be from 9 to 4. And with the plant classes, we recommend that you take 3 of the plant classes, whether they're from us or someone in your area. You really need to see the plants 3 times a year, in the spring, and then again in the summer, and then in the fall, because for 2 reasons. One, the plants change, and second, other plants come up. For example, coltsfoot. It's an unusual plant. You'll first see what emerges out of the ground is the flowers will come up, and then the flowers will go to seed, and then the leaves come up. So if you take just the summer class, you'll see the leaves of the coltsfoot plant, but you'll not see the flowers or it going to seed. Same thing if you just take a fall class on the rose plant, you'll see the rose hips, which are very high in vitamin C. But if you take a spring class, you won't get the benefit of seeing the roses. So that's basically our school philosophy. We try to keep our prices very reasonable. We're very family oriented. In our survival classes, we take a stepped approach too. We start out with our survival classes. Our first class, we feed you. It's a camping trip. You camp out. Because our philosophy is you have to learn in a comfortable environment. So think of it as a camping trip where you're learning. Usually 40% are women, 60% are men in our first classes. If you want something a little more rugged, you take our 201 class, our 301 class, and finally our 401 class. That's a knife and blanket. But let's get down with our topic on this Thursday. And that's a few things your child should know if they ever get lost in the woods. Now, let's broaden that. It doesn't even have to be getting lost in the woods. And by the way, if you have any questions on this, if you're watching us live, please write them in. I'll see them up on the screen, and I'd like to answer your questions directly. But being lost, whether it's in the woods, in a shopping mall, any place, your body reaction is the same. You want to hurry up and find something that looks familiar. Your breathing gets shallow, and you want to get out of this situation. Where the problems come in, you know you're in a bad situation, you know you have to do something, and if you don't have a plan, you don't know what to do. And then you get into that vicious cycle. I know I have to do something, I don't know what to do. I know I have to do something, I don't know what to do. So to alleviate that, a cycle, you have to come up with a plan. The best time to do that is before you get into that situation. So, let's go back to being lost in the woods. What you want to do is work with your child, and the plan is, if they're ever lost in the woods, tell them they're going to have to find the closest tree around them. Because what we don't want them to do is wander. Because you always find where they first got lost the quickest. And then they're trying to find their way back to you, and they're going to start wandering around the woods. So you'll find out where they first got lost, and then you spend the rest of the day, or maybe the rest of several days, trying to chase them down. So we want them to stay right where they are. So in our classes, I say, and it's not only for children, but for adults, when you realize you're lost, find that tree and sit right down by it. And I recommend people sit down for 20 minutes. In that 20 minutes, sing, meditate, talk to yourself, do whatever, but just sit down by that tree. And most people say, well, I'm wasting valuable time. No, you're not. You're calming yourself down. And that's important. Now, there's an acronym we came up with, LIFE, L-I-F-E. And that acronym is what we're going to be going through. What we have to do is you have to logically assess your situation. Logically means you're not going to be sitting there going, oh my God, I'm going to die. I don't know what I'm going to do. No, logically assess your situation, because by listening to this short broadcast, you're going to have a plan. And you're going to know what to do. That's logical. The I stands for inventory what you have. If you're in the woods, hopefully you brought maybe a few supplies with you. A little survival kit that we're going to talk about in another broadcast. And by a survival kit, I don't mean a big backpack on your back. I mean something like a small camera case or something you put in your pocket. If you didn't bring anything, you still have pockets. Check your pockets. You might have a store receipt in there, or you might have some twine with you, or something you have in your pocket. So inventory what you have with you. The F in LIFE, L-I-F-E, is F, formulate a plan. That's what we're going to talk about next. And E, after that 20 minutes is up, is E is enact that plan. So now, after your 20 minutes is up, tell your child, okay, the first thing they have to do now is, you're not sure how long you're going to be in that wood situation, so plan a little camp out. The first thing you're going to do is what the Native Americans would do. They had a plan, if they were ever in the woods, that they had a sacred order of survival. Their sacred order said the first thing you have to deal with is shelter. The second thing would be fire. Next would be water. And the last thing you have to worry about is food. So the first thing is shelter. So right in the immediate facility where your child is lost, see if they could find a ready-made shelter. And by shelter, I mean something that it would get them out of the rain in case it rains. Some kind of overhang, some kind of overhang tree, or something they could crawl under. Now, you want to also emphasize to them, if they do go under a tree, under an overhang, don't be afraid if some rescuers come and look for them. Make sure that they'll go out and talk to the rescuers. You don't want them hiding from the rescuers. A lot of times, if they are scared, they might stay under that tree and the rescuers will pass right in front of them, and they won't even go out and make themselves known. So, again, shelter. You want the shelter because in case they're there for an extended amount of time, we don't want them sitting by that tree getting and have a problem. Water. If there's water in the area, you don't want them to get dehydrated. So, they're going to need water to drink. Hopefully they're going to have water with them if you're going in the woods, hiking and things like that. Tell them water's important. So if there's some way to drink water, show them how to cup their hands and make water. And other exercises you can do with them. Make simulated survival situation with them. Say, okay, let's pretend we're going to get lost together. Okay, what are we going to do? First thing, we're going to go sit down by this tree. Okay, we're going to remember what we're going to do. Remember that sacred order? What would the Indians do? Oh yeah, they had shelter first. Okay, well, let's look around for shelter. What do we have ready made? Okay, well, I don't see anything ready-made here. Well, let's make a shelter, so we're going to need a roof over us. So let's put things together and do a little makeshift shelter. Okay, well, next thing, let's find a water source right around us. We're not going to go wandering more than, and don't give them feet, because it depends how old they are, you know, and even for adults, you know, say 100 feet, you know, that gets, let's say more than 25 steps. That'll give them a good thing. They'll remember 25. Okay, we're not going to wander from this location right here more than 25 steps in any direction. Okay, so we're going to stay in this location. So wherever they first got lost, and you'll know that you get lost, you'll feel it in your stomach, the tightness, you're going to be scared, and you'll that. Now, if they're an older child, the next thing you want to do is make a fire. Now, one of my questions in my survival classes, and if you ever take one of my survival classes and I ask this question, I'm going to ask you, don't answer, let the other students in the class answer, because I'm going to give you the answer now. I always ask, what's the most important thing a fire is going to do for you in a survival or a lost situation? And I let the students give the answers, and they come up with the correct answers, and that's, you know, well, signaling, keeping you warm, purifying your water, those are all correct answers. But I'm looking for the most correct answers, and the most correct answer is going to calm you down. So, a fire is going to calm you down, and I use the example, when you go camping, everybody, after you make a fire, everybody kind of stares into it. We call it the MTV of the woods. So once you have a fire going, the anxiety level is much lower. So if you have a young child, 4, 5, 6 years old, they're probably not going to make a fire. But if you have a child, 7, 8, 9 years old, they'll be able to make a fire. So, again, you might, on some of your campouts, as some exercises, you might want to start, show them how to make a teepee fire safely. Show them about the kindling, the structure of the teepee fire, the size of the teepee fire, use your hand, no bigger than your hand size, and all that. So if they do make a fire, that's going to do a couple things. One, it's going to calm them down. Secondly, it could provide warmth in the event the night gets cold. And second, it's going to be fantastic for signaling once it gets dark. So they'll get found much easier. So we have those things going for them. So by having these skills, if a child ever does get lost, the chance, you know, the chance of them getting found is much greater, but it's not a traumatic event anymore. It's almost an exciting adventure. And they can have stories. It's building up their self-confidence. It's building up their self. It's just part of their learning process. So now let's give another example of this. What are you going to do when your child gets lost? Naturally, you're going to be going to look for them. I have an exercise for you to do now that we're all home with our families a little more than we used to be with this virus. In the next few days, take your kids and go to a football field, a high school where you can go where they have a football field. And I'd challenge you to stand under the goalposts. Have someone close their eyes and ask them to walk in a straight line with their eyes closed directly down the field to the other goalposts with their eyes closed. Now have someone walk with them, because typically, and don't tell them this beforehand, but typically they'll walk out of bounds before the 50-yard line. That's because people tend to walk in an arc whatever hand they're dominant. So if they're right-handed dominant, they won't walk a straight line. They'll tend to walk in a curve to the right. If they're left-hand dominant, they'll tend to walk in a curve to the left. So if your child is lost and they're wandering and they're right-hand dominant, they're going to be walking and they're going to tend to walk in that direction. And you give enough time, they're going to be walking in circles. That's why you might have heard that people walk in circles when they're lost. It's not because they're purposely walking in circles. It's because they're just tending to walk in that direction. So if you're looking for your child and you say, okay, he went off, or he or she went off in that direction, well, don't just continue to walk in a straight line. If they're right-hand dominant, you might also want to, if you yourself, go at a 45-degree angle to the direction you think that they walk, because they're going to be tending to walk in that direction. If you have more than one person with you, you might have one person walk directly in the direction that they walked in. You might want to have another person walk 90 degrees in that direction to where they walked. Another person hit the 45, and with more people you can split that angle and fan out in that direction. And there's a good chance that one of you will find that lost person, especially if they followed your instructions, sat by a tree, and they'll be there waiting for you. Hopefully they'll be building a shelter or finding water or things like that. So being lost in the woods, in our classes I call this lost proofing. And at the beginning of a class I tell people, you're going to be looking for lost, and I get some chuckles. And by the end of the class I'll have always a student come up and say, you weren't kidding about that, were you? Because I am kind of looking forward to getting lost. Because it is like a camp out. As long as you know what to expect, know what to do, it's not a hardship. It's actually something to look forward to, because you get to actually use your skills. Now, getting lost, I get this question every once in a while. I'll get interviewed by someone for an article or whatever, and the question that always comes up is somebody wants to know about a time when I got lost in the woods in some kind of adventure I was in, and I really have no good stories. So I finally came up with an answer that I wouldn't be a very good survival instructor if I was constantly getting lost in the woods and having to use my survival skills to get out of these stupid situations that I got myself into. So navigation is a key part of not getting lost in the woods. Map and compass skills, sounds like a kind of a dry subject, but it's important. So there's two parts of that I like to teach in my classes. Just want to talk about some of those real quick. Map and compass, fun to do. How to use a compass, the old-fashioned compass with the needle. We all have GPS now. I have a GPS. I love toys. I love gadgets. Fun to use. When I go on hikes, I have my GPS with me because, like I said, I love toys. Those of you that know me can vouch for that. But I also have my map and compass. Now, a compass is absolutely useless without a map. You need the two together. All a compass is going to do for you is tell you which way is north. That's it. There's a lot of ways to tell which way north is. In fact, one way is using your wristwatch. If you have the old wristwatch with the hands on it, all you have to do is take the hour hand of your wristwatch, point it at the sun. Halfway between the hour hand and the 12 is approximately south. You can always use that. I know you're thinking, so I'm going to say that again. Take the hour hand of your watch, point it at the sun. Halfway between that hour hand and the 12 on your watch face is approximately south. Another way, you all know that the sun rises in the east, sets in the west. So when you see where the sun's rising, you know that's east, and where it sets is in the west. So if you stand and where the sun's rising, if you put that on your right-hand side, you're facing north. Behind you is going to be south. At night, you can look at the constellations. The Big Dipper, the two pointer stars of the Big Dipper, so you know which way north is. So there's a lot of ways to point north. So compass is going to tell you which way north is. But with a map, you can make the two together, and now the two can help you navigate. So when I'm hiking, I'm using my map and compass just to make sure I'm good with my compass skills. Then every half hour or so I'll take out the GPS, and on the side you have your latitude and longitude, or UTM if you're using the military, and I just verify I'm where I think I am or how close I am, and believe it or not, sometimes I'm a little bit off. So then I try to find out where I made my error. So I make it into a little bit of a game. Now, in our classes we also teach you how to navigate without a map and compass. There's a few ways. One of the tricks is you simply go to a tree that's been cut down with a chainsaw. Look at the growth rings. Lost in the woods. These days, there's people all over the woods. There's people with chainsaws. You're going to actually find somebody with a chainsaw that has cut down a tree. Look at the growth rings. The growth rings on a tree are typically, not guarantee every time, but typically wider on the south side of the tree than on the north side. So that side of the tree is more than likely the southern side. Now, if I find one tree with wider growth rings, I might not bet my life on that one tree, because this is assuming that that tree was not influenced by other trees around. If there's a lot of other trees growing in the middle of a forest, all bets are off. But if this tree was growing and it's a lone tree, the growth rings are wider on the south side. It only makes sense because where we live in the northern hemisphere, the sun is always on the southern side, and it gets more sunlight. A few other navigation questions. The moon. If you see the moon, the crescent moon, when it's a crescent like that and it's higher in the sky, if you draw a line from the points straight down, it's going to be approximately south. Wherever it is, it'll point, if you put a tangent down, it'll point approximately south. So at night, it's a way to show where south is approximately. Some other ways. If you see a grove of trees, the trees will have a lean, typically. The lean is caused by the prevailing winds, and if you're in an area and you happen to know which direction the prevailing winds are, you'll know which those prevailing winds push the tree in that direction. For example, I live in Northeast Ohio. Our prevailing winds are from the west. If you see a group of trees, they will have a slight lean toward the east. And you can check this out whenever you're walking in the woods. You can see the trees around Northeast Ohio have a slight lean to the east. So if you see this when you're walking in the parks or just walking around, you'll train your eyes to pick up little things like this. So if you are ever lost, it'll be easier for you to. So if I'm ever lost in the woods, I see a tree cut down and I see, okay, the growth rings are wider on several trees if somebody happened to use a chainsaw to cut down some trees on a certain side. So I say, okay, it appears that side is north according to these tree ring growth. So I'll keep wandering. I'll say, oh, those trees over there appear to be leaning in that direction. That means, okay, that way would be west, because if it's pointing that way would be east, that way would be west. Those tree rings would say that way is south. Okay, I don't have my watch on me, so I can't use that the hand method. At night, I see a crescent moon. I use that tangent. Okay, that's pointing that way. That again confirms that way south. I'm pretty certain that that way south, that way's north, that way's east, and that way's west. So there's a lot of ways to tell south. You can also make what they call a sun compass. Pretty straightforward. This is something great to use with your kids. Just stick a stick in the ground. Do it in the morning where it's going to be in a clear area. Take a rock and put in a rock at the very end of where the shadow of that stick is, early in the morning. Later, hour later, take another rock, put a rock at the end of the shadow. Now the shadow is naturally going to move. And keep doing that all day long. What's going to happen is by the end of the day, you'll get an arc of rocks. that were placed at the end of the shadow. So that arc is going to be, if you can imagine it as a line, because the way the sun goes, it's not going to be a straight line, but imagine it as a sort of straight line. It's going to be in the east-west direction. And the shortest distance between where your stick is and the rocks is going to be pointing north. So that's going to be your sun compass. And it's a good way. Now, it's going to take all day. If you do it any shorter, it won't be exactly, but it'll give you an idea which way north, south, east, and west is. The best time to do it, where you're going to get the straightest line, is March 21st or September 21st, but it'll work throughout the year. You're going to get the biggest curvature of your line on June 21st, and but it'll still work, so you can play with that a bit. Yeah, navigation is fun. I really do like the GPS they have these days. The one thing you have to be careful of, a lot of people are saying, I don't need map and compass, I got my GPS. Like I said, I don't think the world's coming to an end or anything, but if something in the future does go really bad, and you're relying on a GPS sometime, the first thing that the government's going to do is shut down our GPS system. There's two systems, one for the military and one for civilian. And all it's going to take them is to flip one switch and the civilian GPS will go dark. So your GPS won't work. It's great when things are fine, but you're not going to be able to rely on it. So you should know how to use a map and compass. And right now, you can get the USGS maps. So when you're out hiking, once you learn to use them, they're a lot of fun. If you are thinking about buying a compass, they have the military ones that flip up, and they're for military use, and they look pretty complicated. They're great for range finding. That's not the kind you really want if you want to use it with a map. You want one with a clear base and with the compass on it. And that's what you want. And the reason for the clear base is you want to be able to see your map under it. The real fancy military ones are great if you're into range finding and you want an exact thing for calling in artillery shots. If you're not using it for that, just get a compass with a clear flat base. And if you're over 40, our eyesight tends to get a little worse. Get one with a magnifying glass. That helps to read some of the small detail on maps. Just a little piece of trivia. A lot of people have the headlamps and they have all the different color lights. Not sure if you know what the different color lights are for. You probably know that red, that saves your night vision. So, you know, white light, if you turn on a white light, that kind of screws up your night vision. If you use a red light, it preserves your night vision, so you can use that. But you ever wonder what the blue and the green lights are for? Well, here's a clue. The green light is for map reading. Because if you have a map, a lot of the markings are red. If you use your red light to preserve your night vision and try to read red markings with your red headlamp on, all the red markings go away. It's like they disappear, like invisible ink. So you need a color light that the green won't destroy your night vision as bad as white light will. And the green light, the red markings on your map, you can see them perfectly. So it's kind of a compromise between the white light, so you can read your maps with the green light. So at night, you have to read a topo map, use your green light. What's the blue light for? Well, if you're a hunter, you know that. The blue light is for when you're tracking a deer at night. The blue light helps you track blood. If you're tracking a deer and you didn't find it, it's starting to get dark, or it gets dark, the blue light will make a blood trail that you're trying to follow look black. So if you're tracking that deer, you have your red light on, trying to find things. Well, red blood, tracked with a red light, it disappears. Flip on your blue light, that blood trail will tend to look black. better. And again, if you flip on your white light, the blood will look good, but then you lose your night vision. So those are the theories behind the different color lights. So, phone directions. Phone directions are great. Like I said, we have all these modern conveniences. I know I used to take quite a few trips on my motorcycle. I used to use the old Rand McNally, which were great because I used to map out my trip, and then I used to see where the campsites were and where all the crazy little side tourist attractions were, that, you know, where the biggest ball of twine is and all that. By the way, if you still like to go on road trips, there's a website called Roadside America. If you like to stop at those touristy places like the biggest ball of twine and the most haunted castle in Indiana, Roadside America is the place to go. You can put in the state you're going in or the city you're going by, and it'll have all kind of crazy little quirky attractions. So I use that quite a bit. It makes a trip a little more fun if you have a little bit extra time. Judy, I haven't seen your name on there. Thank you for watching. If you have any navigation questions or stump me, like I said, I'm not the expert end-all on navigation. Done some navigation, but what else can I say about navigation? Get some questions on triangulation. Triangulation is trying to find out your position with map and compass. You can do that if you're out west. Triangulation is simply a matter of you have your map and compass in front of you, and you look in the distance and you say, okay, I see that mountaintop there, and I look on my map, I see the mountaintop on my map, and I see over there, there's a radio tower, and I see it on my map there, and you kind of get the angle on your map, and you draw the lines, and you draw the lines, and you can kind of transfer what you see in real life onto your map. That works great if you can see that mountaintop and that radio tower there. I live in Ohio. It's flat. You can't, there's no mountains to begin with, and you can't see anything at that distance. So triangulation in a flat area, if you're in Kansas, Missouri, any place flat, triangulation doesn't work. Out west, works fantastic. But if you're any place out east, it's much more difficult. So it depends where you are. You might have heard some things, just real briefly, called declination. And this is getting more in-depth in navigation. So this is much more than what you want to tell your child from getting lost. But there are two, actually there's three norths. There's magnetic north, there's true north, and there's the north that the military uses, which is grid north. Grid north, don't worry about. It's the military breaks up the Earth into like square grids, so it's just to get super accurate. Don't worry about that. If you come to our class in survey, we'll talk about grid north and how to be real accurate in case you want to drop a nuclear bomb between two people that are sitting, 2 meters apart. Use grid north, you get it right on. But the two norths are, there's magnetic north, that's where your compass points, and that's always kind of wandering. In fact, right now, 30 years ago, it used to be someplace in Canada. Now it's actually wandering to someplace over in the northern part of Russia. And it's moving 100 miles a year. It's because of the molten magma of the Earth, so it moves all the time. And there's true north, and that's the top of the map, and that's where the North Pole is, where Santa Claus's castle is. So those are the two norths that if you're doing a lot of navigation, you have to correct for. And there's this very simple way to do that. So if you ever take a navigation class, you can correct for that either by your map or dialing it into your compass. So if you ever take a navigation class, make sure they're going to, part of the curriculum is how to correct for declination. So
we have some people who missed the first things children should know.
Well, let's go over it again. First thing children should know. Just to recap, if you have a child, you don't want them to wander. So with your child, you want to tell them, when you get lost, the very first thing is you're going to know you're lost. You're going to be scared. Your stomach's going to be tight. You're going to be breathing shallow. You're going to want to hurry up and run. That's what people want to do. They're not running really because they're scared. They're running because they want to hurry up and find something that looks familiar. Oh, by the way, there's a definition for being lost. Most people don't know it. And that definition is you don't know where you're at. You don't know how to get back to where you started. And you don't know how to get where you're going. So if those three things are met, you're lost. So what you don't want to do is keep wandering. Because in my last 23 years, I was on 3 official search and rescue parties. And in all 3, we located where the person first got lost. And you could see by the sign and track where they were on a trail, they were fine, and where they got lost. And usually we located those, well, all 3, we located those within the first half day or first 3/4 of the day when they got lost. We didn't find them in the first day. One was about the end of the first day, and the other 2 was end of the second day, and the other one was at the end of the third day. Because they wanted to find their way out. So we had to actually chase them down. If they would have stayed put, we would have found them a lot easier. So what you want to tell your child is, when you know you're lost, you get this feeling, you know you're lost, there's no gray area about that, you find the closest tree and sit down by it. You're going to sit down there for 20 minutes. And in that 20 minutes, you're going to meditate, you're going to sing to yourself, you're going to talk to yourself, or you're going to think about the plan that we're going to go over in just 20 seconds from now. And you're going to make this into a little game, a little camp out, a little survival situation. And so after this 20 minutes, you're not wasting time, you're getting your thoughts together. And we're using what the Native Americans used as their sacred order of survival. Number 1 is shelter. Number 2 is water. Number 3 is fire. And number 4 is food. What you do after the 20 minutes is up, you're going to think about this acronym of LIFE, L-I-F-E. L is logically assess your situation. That's what you're doing while you're sitting by the tree. I is inventory what you have on you. That means, okay, what's in my pockets? You know, did I bring a lighter with me? Did I bring any cord with me? Any rope with me? Any string? Do I have some receipts that I stuck in my pocket? Anything to help me out? Once that's over, L, I, you inventory what you have. F is formulate a plan. We're going to do that right now. And then E is get off your butt and enact that plan. So the first thing you do, you're going to do a shelter. You're not going to build a shelter. That's not your first choice. You're going to find one ready-made. When you're in a survival situation, you're going to do everything as lazy as you can. So you're going to look for something already made, an overhang, something you can crawl under. You're doing this in case it rains. You want to maintain that core body temperature, so you're going to look for something ready-made. Tell your child, if you're going to get under something, if you see rescue workers coming around, make sure you yell for them. Whenever you go out in the woods, everybody, you, your child, your wife, your girlfriend, everyone should have a whistle with them. The international distress signal is 3 blasts of a whistle in groups of 3. So that's blowing whistle 3 times, pause, 3 times again, pause, and 3 times again. Now, if you're in your car, it's blowing your horn 3 times in a row, pause, 3 times in a row, pause, 3 times in a row. If you're a hunter, 3 gunshots, pause, 3 gunshots, pause, 3 gunshots, pause. If you ever hear that, and you're not the one lost, but you hear it in the distance, that means somebody needs help. So that's the international distress signal. The reason I say that is you might be lost, you might be yelling for help, and eventually you're going to go hoarse. A whistle can be heard at least 5 times further than the human voice. So you might be 50 feet away, and without a voice, somebody could be walking by and they'll never hear you yell. A whistle, it's very easy to blow into it. So everybody has a whistle, so you'll be able to get help to you. Once you have the shelter made up, water's going to be the next thing. You don't want to get dehydrated. You're not sure how long you're going to be in this situation. So you're going to tell your child, okay, water's going to be the next thing. Teach them how to drink water. Find water. Don't worry too much about is it pure water or not. Yeah, we can go into another talk about Giardia and all that. It takes days for Giardia to show up. We're worried about dehydration. We can worry about Giardia and getting them antibiotics once they get found and then go to a doctor. Pardon?
Can you tell them what Giardia is?
Oh yeah, Giardia is a little bug that's in water. Eventually it will get you diarrhea, and it must be treated because diarrhea will lead to dehydration. That's not your concern right now. If you're lost, you can only live 3 days without water. Giardia takes several days to develop. So at this point, we have to deal with our major concern, and that's getting you found. So we want to get you through a point where you can get found, then we'll get you to a doctor. Now the water you're drinking may or may not have Giardia. It might be good water. It might be just rainwater, which is perfectly safe to drink. In a puddle, you can drink it, no Giardia, no bugs, drink it all day long, perfectly safe. Your immune system might be strong enough, even if there are some viruses, bacteria in there, your body can handle it. It'll take care of the Giardia, and you'll be perfectly healthy. So, by you not drinking the water, that's more dangerous than you drinking the water. So, drink the water. Worry about the Giardia later. So, teach your kid how to do this. And you can do this together. Do a little mock situation. Hey, let's pretend we're lost. What's the first thing you would do? Okay, we're going to sit down by that tree together. Okay. Now, if it's an older child, 8, 9, 10 years old, then we can go into the fire part. Show them how to make a teepee fire safely, so they're not going to start the forest on fire. Show them how to make the teepee fire, go that. Show them how to build a reflector behind it. So now this survival situation is more of a camp out. I'm not saying looking forward to it, but they have the confidence. They're building the self-esteem. It's not a scary situation, but it's a situation they can handle. So if they get lost, they'll deal with it. So it's not this crisis. So that's called loss proofing. So and the main thing is again, when you're going on hikes, and this is just when you're going on a hike, even in a park, always turn around. Woods paths look a lot different going one way than the other. So situational awareness is real important, and that's what people don't do a lot. They just go one direction, look in one direction, and then if they say, okay, I'm lost, they look around, oh, that looks totally different because you never saw it in that direction. So it's just looking around, being aware of your surroundings, and just dealing with it like that. Let's see, Janie, thank you very much. And a good friend of mine said that she's going to pass on my every other Thursday broadcast to her 1,500 plus followers. I would sure appreciate that. Anyone out there, if we're trying to get more followers on our Facebook, it's good for the business, but it's also good getting this survival information out. I think those of you that know me, we're not spammers. We're not trying, to just put advertisements out, buy this on our website, even though we do have good products on our website, and I'd love to see you in some of our classes. But I'd like to give out good information on just normal survival, on common sense, on just being a little more self-reliant. Like last week, we did a little bit on the gardening. on a little bit on the edible medicinal plants. We're going to be getting more and more into that. And I'm always looking for ideas from you on 2 Thursdays from now. What should we be talking about? You know, if you have an idea, gee, we'd like to hear a little bit more about a topic. If I don't know about it, I'll try to get a guest here that does. And in the process, I'll learn about it too. And I always like to learn new things. Yeah, we're planning to do these every. And like I said, I have topics up my sleeve, but I'd rather talk about something that you're interested in. Thank you for joining in. I don't want to hold you. We'll be back 2 Thursdays from now in on our Facebook page. If you have any ideas on some future topics, please do so, and share these with any of your friends. And we'll be back 2 Thursdays from now. Thanks a lot.